We're here talking about parenting and tech, and particularly as our kids get older, it gets more challenging. I thought that it'd be a good idea if I brought a live specimen here who could talk about this from a young person's perspective. So my daughter, Lissy, who turns 18 tomorrow, by the way, this is a big deal. I'm gonna ask her to come up, and she's gonna share a little bit about her journey in this whole area of tech and her journey with tech in our family. So Lissy, come on up. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So like my dad said, my name is Lissy, and I just came so I could share a little bit about what it's like growing up as a teenager and going through high school and managing the whole world of tech and social media and just all of that kind of addiction to technology that's really rampant, really amongst high schoolers today. So first of all, I have social media. I text my friends, and I actually think it's a really important part of our generation. One of the things that immediately comes to my mind is, as Christians, we want to be in the world and not of the world, and understanding tech and understanding social media is a key piece in relating to people in our generation. But with that, there also comes a lot of dangers, especially on things like Instagram, Facebook, all of those. Everyone is trying to create an image. And this leads for a lot of people to depression, suicidal thoughts. You read story after story about the dangers of social media. So it's really careful that you watch out for finding your self-worth online, because that's when you start running into trouble. And sometimes for me, I love Instagram. I think it's great for seeing, what my friends are doing. You get to connect with a lot of people. But sometimes I delete the app off my phone for a couple of weeks, for a month, because I just find myself getting sucked into that mentality of how am I looking? How am I presenting myself to other people? How many likes am I getting on my photos? And that's a really dangerous mentality to get into, because once you start doing that, then it starts becoming an addiction, something that you rely on for your identity. And I think also going along with that, one of the most popular social medias today is Snapchat. And I personally do not have a Snapchat because, like my dad said, keeping that policy of open technology really isn't possible with Snapchat. You can be talking to someone and your picture disappears in 5 seconds. There's no accountability with that. And secret social media is too much temptation, especially for high school students. High school students, even like myself, you could consider yourself the most mature, Christian, whatever. And I still think that having that secret social media or things that like your family or friends don't have access to is really dangerous. And I think even with Instagram, both my mom and my grandma have Instagram. So they are seeing what I'm posting all the time. They can kind of look at my feed, they like my photos. One of my favorite things is with my grandma. So I got my Instagram, I think when I was a sophomore in high school. My mom saw it, she was like, hey, that's cool, I want one. And then my grandma saw it and she was like, what's that? I want to get one too. So her username is Grandmary Jean on Instagram. And she'll probably like my photos like a week late or something like that, because she checks it, I don't know, once every few weeks. But you can scroll through, if you scroll through my feed, on almost every single one of my pictures, I get a comment from Grandmary Jean of, so cool, you're such a cool kid, so cute, all this stuff. And my friends are like, who is Grandmary Jean? And I'm like, it's just my grandma. So I love getting the Grandmary Jean comments on my photos. And my dad will also talk about this in a minute, but growing up in regards to texting is a huge thing amongst high school students and young people, because it's really the main way of communication, probably along with Snapchat, is how people communicate with each other. But in our house, when I first got my phone, I was 13 years old, and my parents told me, they're like, okay, you can text people, but we're getting all your texts. So all my texts would go to my dad's computer and my mom's iPad, starting from when I first got my phone. So they could see all the texts that I was sending and getting. And that was established at a very early age. And I think that is super important for your children, either when they're first getting their phones or starting off in that realm. It's just establishing right away that open relationship when it comes to technology. And I was a senior in high school last year, graduated this spring, and my friends, I would always tell them like, oh yeah, my parents get all my texts. And they're like, that's crazy, your parents get all your texts? Like, doesn't that drive you insane? I was like, no, that's normal, because that's what I grew up with, and there was just that relationship of, yes, my parents are going to get all my texts because we have that relationship of openness and honesty. And also in our house, the policy is when you turn 18, then parents stop getting your texts. So that will be tomorrow for me. Looking forward to it, but not in a bad way, but it's just kind of that step of independence. And I think one of the most important things, like my dad mentioned, when it comes down to this tech stuff, is really dealing with the heart connection. And that's really at the core of all of it. And what I mean by heart connection is that relationship of openness, honesty, warmth, and trust. And all of that is really present when it comes to social media and technology, because it's not an easy road to walk with your teenager. And I can even, speaking from personal experience, there's been lots of tension and debates on, okay, are we gonna allow you to do this? Are we gonna allow you to do that? Like, what are our parameters here? So there's no easy and straightforward path that will be met with no resistance. But the most important thing is maintaining that relationship with your teenager where they feel like they can come to you with anything, or that you can help them with anything, but also that you have the right to be a part of their lives. There's nothing secret, there's nothing that's hidden. And I think that that's one of the most important things when it comes to dealing with the tech and social media. So my dad and I will be around after to answer any questions you have. I'd love to talk to you about any problems or questions with your teenager in regards to this area. Thank you.